you look like you're resting. Your brain is still billing you full hours. Here's what nobody tells you. The people who seem to operate at a completely different cognitive level than everyone else, they're not sleeping less. They're not biologically gifted. The gap between them and everyone else isn't in their active hours. It's in a window of time most people don't even know they have. Researchers call it the default mode network. I'm gonna call it something simpler: dark time. It's the 3 to 4 hours hiding inside every single day when you're in the shower, commuting, cooking, walking between meetings, lying in bed before sleep. You don't think of these as thinking time, but your brain absolutely does. In 2001, neuroscientist Marcus Rachel at Washington University ran brain imaging scans on people doing nothing, just spacing out. His finding was shocking. The brain's energy consumption dropped by only 5%, which means when you think your mind is blank, it's still running at 95% capacity. It's organizing fragmented data from your day, cross-referencing new experiences with old memories, and quietly running simulations you never asked for. This isn't a metaphor. This is what your neurons are doing right now, tonight, and every single night, whether you intend it or not. The question isn't whether your brain uses this time. The question is what you're giving it to work on. There's a reason most people never deliberately use this window, and it has nothing to do with discipline or intelligence. Your brain has a factory default setting: prioritize threat and social signals. This isn't a flaw. It's a survival system built over hundreds of thousands of years. When a caveman zoned out on the savannah, his brain needed to scan for predators and track who in the tribe might be a threat. That system saved lives. Fast forward to today, the predators are gone, but the instinct remains, and now it gets hijacked. It becomes doom scrolling the second you get bored. Mental replays of yesterday's difficult conversation. Lying awake, running a highlight reel of your worst anxieties. A tracking study from Harvard psychologist Dan Gilbert's team found the average person spends about 47% of their waking hours with their mind wandering, nearly half their life. And the top 3 things their minds wander to: emotional rumination over the past, anxiety about the future, mindless social replay. Not one of those involves solving a problem. Not one produces anything you can use. Let's put a number on what this actually costs you. 3.5 hours of dark time per day. 47% of that consumed by emotional static. That's roughly 600 hours a year gone. By deliberate practice standards, 600 hours is enough time for a complete beginner to reach conversational fluency in a new language. It's enough to take any skill from 0 to genuinely intermediate. It's enough to read 50 books, build a side project from scratch, or map out an entirely different career trajectory. That time didn't disappear. It got quietly converted into anxiety and noise. And here's the part that makes this genuinely serious. It's not just an opportunity cost. That emotional friction running through your dark time is why you come home feeling fried even on days when you didn't do that much. Your mental battery wasn't drained by work. It was drained by hours of low-grade cognitive static that your brain kept processing in the background. So what are the people doing who do use this time differently? They're not meditating for 3 hours. They're not journaling in some elaborate ritual. They're doing something much simpler. They're deliberately loading their dark time with a problem worth solving. Here's the neuroscience behind why this works. Your default mode? Network, the cluster of brain regions that activates when you stop actively focusing, does 3 specific things automatically. It consolidates short-term memories into long-term ones. It forces unexpected collisions between knowledge from completely different domains, and it runs simulations to model future scenarios. Combine those 3 functions, and you get what people usually call inspiration, or a creative breakthrough, or that feeling of waking up with the answer to something you'd been stuck on for weeks. Henry Poincaré solved a major mathematical theorem while stepping onto a bus. Auguste Kekule unlocked the ring structure of benzene from a half-dream about a snake biting its tail. Archimedes understood buoyancy in the bathtub. Same mechanism every time: dense. Deliberate loading of raw material during focused work, then stepping back and letting the DMN collide ideas in the background until something surfaces. The catch, and this is the part that makes all the differences, that background processing requires preloaded tasks. If you don't give your DMN something worth working on, it defaults to whatever has the strongest emotional charge, which is almost always your anxieties, your regrets, and your unresolved conflicts. Your dark time is an amplifier, not a generator. Feed it high-quality problems, it outputs high-quality insight. Feed it anxiety, it outputs more anxiety. The hardware is neutral. The input is everything. Here are 4 protocols, each with actual research behind them for changing what goes into that amplifier. Protocol 1, the sleep prompt. The Stanford Sleep Center ran a controlled study. One group scrolled through their phones until they fell asleep. The other spent just 5 minutes writing down one specific unsolved problem and held it in their mind as they drifted off. The second group outperformed the first by 37% on next-day problem-solving tasks. 5 minutes, one question. That's all it takes to give your brain a directive that it will then process for the next 7 to 8 hours while you sleep. Tonight, before you close your eyes, write one sentence. Why is specific problem not moving? Or what would change everything about specific goal? Don't try to answer it, just load it. Let the DMN do the rest. Protocol 2, the commute assignment. Before you leave the house tomorrow, give yourself one micro question. Keep it concrete. What's the actual bottleneck in this project? Or what's the skill that would have the highest leverage on my income right now? Then, and this is the hard part, don't open TikTok. Don't put on a podcast. Let your mind orbit that question for the commute. By the time you arrive, you'll have angles you didn't have when you left. Most people treat their commute as dead time. The people running 3 cognitive levels above them treat it as a second thinking session. Protocol 3, the walking session. Charlie Munger, one of the most respected investors of the last century, walked for an hour every day and credited those walks with many of his most important thinking breakthroughs. The neuroscience is clean. Low-intensity cardio increases blood flow to the prefrontal cortex and downregulates the amygdala. Your rational brain activates, your emotional reactivity quiets down. It's a biological configuration that's genuinely difficult to achieve while sitting at a desk. You don't need an hour. 20 minutes with a single problem loaded into your mind is enough to change the quality of your thinking for the rest of the day. Protocol 4, starve the gap noise. Every time you pull out your phone for 10 seconds while waiting for an elevator or standing in line, you're feeding your DMN low-quality input and burning bandwidth that could have been working on something real. The fix isn't complicated. Turn your screen to grayscale. Kill notifications. Practice staring at the wall. Let yourself be bored. Your brain will interpret the absence of stimulation as a cue to start working, and if you've preloaded a question, that's what it will work on. The friction of doing nothing is exactly the point. That discomfort is your brain attempting to switch into background processing mode. Most people immediately kill it by checking their phone. The ones who don't, those are the ones who seem to have ideas everywhere, all the time. Charles Darwin built a dedicated thinking path, the sandwalk at his estate. He walked it every day. The core arguments on the origin of species were developed on that path. Jeff Bezos spent an entire summer driving across the country, running background simulations on what the growth of the internet actually meant for commerce. Amazon was the output of that dark time. The time you spend looking like you're doing nothing is precisely what determines the trajectory of your life. Because mindset, clarity, and insights don't appear out of thin air. They compound session by session, question by question, through thousands of small decisions about what to load into your dark time. We all get the same lifespan. Some people run cognitive static through it for decades. Others use that invisible window as a factory for continuous insight. The first person lives the same day on repeat for 30,000 days. The second person stacks compounding returns on every single one. Here's what I'll leave you with. Tonight, when you're lying in bed, or walking to your car, or waiting for something to load, what is your brain actually going to be working on? An argument that already happened? A fear about something that might never happen? A notification that won't matter in 48 hours? Or a problem that if you cracked it, would genuinely change something? That answer, more than your IQ, your background, or how many hours you work, is the most accurate signal for where you'll be 5 years from now. Dark time doesn't care about your circumstances. You get 3 to 4 hours of it every single day. The only question is whether it's an anxiety incubator or a thinking engine. The choice is made not once. It's made in every small, invisible moment.